In the dusty heart of Nakuru, Kenya, where the sun scorched the red earth and engines told more stories than people, lived Amani, a 26-year-old mechanic with oil-stained fingers, a sharp tongue, and a heart that burned with quiet dreams. She ran her late father's small garage on the outskirts of town. Most people underestimated her, not because she was young, but because she was a woman in a world ruled by men with spanners and steel. But Amani didn't flinch. She knew the insides of a Toyota like the lines on her palm. Her days were long, filled with the metallic clang of wrenches and the scent of petrol. Business was slow. Bills piled up. But she kept her father's name alive, even if it meant sleeping hungry some nights. Then one blazing Thursday everything changed. A sleek black Range Rover pulled up in front of her workshop, an odd sight in a place where most cars coughed more smoke than they moved. The man who stepped out looked like he'd walked straight out of a fashion magazine. Chiseled, dressed in a tailored blue suit that somehow didn't get a speck of dust on it. Sunglasses covered half his face, but even behind the lenses, his eyes scanned everything sharply, like he was measuring the soul of the place. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice smooth but firm. "I think there's something wrong with my car. Keeps overheating." Amani wiped her hands on a rag, arching an eyebrow. "You sure this machine isn't just having a bad day? Rich cars get moody sometimes." He chuckled, the kind of laugh that made her stomach flutter despite herself. "I'm Jabari. Jabari Mwangi." The name struck a chord. Jabari Mwangi, the billionaire CEO of TechCore East Africa. Headlines, awards, rumors of secret projects in Silicon Savannah. What was he doing here? Still she kept her cool. "Pop the hood, Jabari. Let's see what your moody toy is complaining about." He watched as she dived into the engine, fingers moving with practiced grace, sweat glistening on her brow. For once, he wasn't the center of attention, she was. "What's a woman like you doing in a place like this?" he asked after a moment. Amani didn't look up. "Fixing your car. And paying rent. And surviving." He smiled. "You're impressive. Flattery won't get you a discount." She didn't know it yet, but that was the exact moment everything shifted. Not because of his money or power, but because in that small dusty garage, Jabari saw something he hadn't seen in years. Raw talent, strength, and authenticity. She didn't treat him like royalty, and he liked it. When he drove away that evening, engine purring thanks to her magic touch, he left behind something more valuable than money: curiosity. And in Amani, a storm had started. She told herself not to think about him. But destiny, it seemed, had already begun tightening its grip. And Jabari. He returned the next day, with more than a broken engine. Jabari returned the very next morning, this time with an old Land Rover Defender that clearly didn't belong to him. The engine sputtered like an angry goat, the paint was chipped, and the suspension whimpered at every bump. Amani narrowed her eyes. "This isn't your car." He grinned, leaning against the doorway like he had all the time in the world. "No. It belongs to my company's caretaker. But I figured she needed a tune-up. And I'd get to see you again." Amani rolled her eyes. "You brought me charity work. I brought you a challenge." Challenge. That word stirred something in her. She took the job, not because of him, she told herself, but because she couldn't resist a stubborn machine. Over the next few days, Jabari kept returning, each time with a different excuse. A loose bolt here, a rattle there, a question about car maintenance that she knew a man like him didn't really need to ask. But what surprised her wasn't his persistence. It was how normal he was beneath the billionaire armor. He asked about her childhood, listened when she talked about losing her father, and even helped her close up the garage one night when it started raining. There was something honest in his laughter, something grounding. One evening, as the sun melted over the horizon in hues of burnt orange and honey, he invited her for coffee at a quiet roadside cafe. She hesitated, not because she wasn't tempted, but because the world she came from didn't mix with the one he lived in. Still she said yes. Over mugs of spiced chai and soft mandatsi they talked, and laughed. And for a while, Amani forgot the weight of her debts, the loneliness that sometimes crept in when the garage lights dimmed. But the fairy tale was interrupted when she returned to her garage 2 days later to find a white envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a legal notice, an eviction letter. The landlord had sold the land to a private investor. She had 2 weeks to leave. Panic wrapped around her like a vice. That garage was all she had. Her father's legacy, or life. And now it was being ripped from under her feet, by someone rich enough to swallow her dreams without even blinking. She confronted the landlord. He was smug. A high bidder came in. All cash. Said he wanted the land for development. Can't say no to money, Amani. She asked who bought it. The name shattered her like glass. Jabari Mwangi. Fury coursed through her. She raced to his corporate tower, demanded to see him, stormed past assistants. When she finally faced him, she didn't wait for explanations. You played me, she spat. You came into my life like a spark, and now you've burned it all down. Jabari looked stunned. Amani, I swear I didn't. She didn't let him finish. The betrayal was too heavy. She turned and walked away, engine roaring inside her chest louder than any car. But Jabari wasn't finished yet. Days passed. Amani shut down the garage in silence. She didn't cry, not once. But her silence was louder than grief. She packed her father's tools with trembling hands, each wrench and bolt a memory of the man who taught her that no matter how broken a machine, or a heart, was, it could always be fixed. She ignored Jabari's calls, his messages, his apologies. To her, they were just more noise from a world that never cared about hers. But Jabari wasn't the kind of man to give up. He had never fought for anything with his heart, only with his money. Yet for the first time in his life, he realized money couldn't buy forgiveness. It couldn't rebuild trust. So he did something he'd never done before. He showed up in dusty jeans, a t-shirt, and old sneakers. No driver, no entourage, and waited in front of Amani's garage from morning until the sun dipped behind the horizon. When she finally appeared, dragging a box of spare parts, she stopped in her tracks. I told you to leave me alone, she said coldly. I didn't buy the land, Jabari said gently. I swear, I had no idea until you told me. I've been digging for days. Turns out one of my junior investors bought it through a shell company. I've already started reversing it. The land is yours again. Amani stared at him, guarded. Why? To make yourself feel better. No, because that garage is part of who you are. And I've fallen in love with every piece of you. The grease-stained hands, the stubborn pride, the way you make machines obey. You don't need saving, Amani. You just needed someone who wouldn't run when things got messy. For the first time, her defenses wavered. The rage in her eyes softened, but she still turned away. You think this is a movie? Billionaire falls for the mechanic and fixes everything with a wave of his wallet. No, he said, stepping closer. I don't want to fix your life. I want to build something with you, a real partnership. Love, Amani. Messy, beautiful love. Silence stretched between them. Then finally she exhaled. If you really mean it, you'll help me rebuild. Brick by brick. You'll be here when the engine stalls, not just when it shines. Jabari smiled. I wouldn't be anywhere else. Weeks later the garage reopened, this time twice its original size. Amani's name glowed proudly on the signboard, funded not by charity, but through a joint business partnership she and Jabari launched. She trained local girls and mechanics, turning her once failing garage into a symbol of power and resilience. And as for Jabari, he found something in that dusty town he never knew he needed. Not a trophy wife or a business deal, but a partner who grounded him, who challenged him, who loved him without the layers of wealth and status. Under the stars of Nakuru, with the scent of oil in the air and the music of engines humming in the background, Jabari kissed Amani for the first time. Not as a billionaire, not as a savior, but as a man who had found the love of his life in the most unexpected place. And this was just the beginning.